Elvis Presley stood by the window of his grand Graceland home, a familiar feeling of restlessness stirring within him. Outside, the Memphis sun beat down on manicured lawns, and the distant hum of the city carried the sounds of ordinary life. But for Elvis, life wasn't ordinary. It was a whirlwind of tours, recording sessions, movie sets, and the constant adoration of millions. He was the king, the most famous man in the world. Yet sometimes, in the quiet moments like these, he felt a strange emptiness. He turned from the window, his gaze falling on the polished wooden floor, where his bare feet had often practiced swift, controlled movements. Karate? That was his escape, his anchor. More than just a hobby. It was a philosophy. A discipline that grounded him in a world constantly trying to pull him in a million directions. He discovered it years ago, immersing himself in its teachings, earning a black belt that meant more to him than any gold record. In the dojo, he wasn't Elvis Presley, the rock and roll icon. He was just Elvis, a student, a practitioner, seeking balance. He trained with his friends, his bodyguards, but it was always within his private world. He wondered what it would be like to share this passion truly, share it beyond the fleeting glimpses reporters sometimes caught. He knew the impact music had, the way it could lift spirit. Karate, that was about building something deeper inside. The phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, his voice a familiar, gravelly drawl. "Elvis boy, got an interesting call for you. MS Clara Jenkins from the Northwood Community Center. They're struggling, need a bit of a boost for their summer program, thought maybe a little appearance. A song or two might do 'em good." Elvis paused, twirling a small wooden nunchaku he kept nearby. "A song, Colonel? You know I'm not doing much of that these days, not publicly." He was between major projects taking a breather, and the idea of a casual, unannounced performance felt off. "Well, she didn't just ask for a song," the colonel continued, a note of amusement in his voice. "Said she heard you were quite a martial artist. Thought maybe, just maybe, you could do one of your karate demonstrations." Elvis stopped twirling the nunchaku. His eyebrows shot up. A karate demonstration for kids at a community center. This wasn't a stadium filled with screaming fans. This wasn't a movie set. This was real. An opportunity to show something authentic, something he deeply believed in, without the usual fanfare. A spark, quiet but persistent, ignited within him. "Tell me more about this Northwood Community Center," Colonel Elvis said, his voice thoughtful. "And MS Clara." Meanwhile, across town in a small, worn-out house, 12-year-old Lily Harper sat hunched over a tattered sketch pencil, moved slowly, sketching a fantastical creature, a dragon with sad eyes. Lily was a quiet kid, almost painfully shy. School was a battlefield of loud voices and confident laughter. Places she rarely ventured into. Community center was usually her refuge, a place where she could lose herself in books or art projects, but even there, she often felt invisible. Her mom, Sarah, bustled into the room, a flyer clutched in her hand, her face unusually bright. "Lily, guess what? MS Clara from the center just called. They're doing something really special for the summer program, something to get the kids excited." Lily looked up, her gaze tentative. "What is it?" she mumbled, already bracing herself for something involving group games or forced interaction. She said, "Elvis Presley is coming." Sarah exclaimed, her voice barely containing her excitement. "To do a karate demonstration, can you believe it? The king himself. At our little center." Lily's eyes widened, her pencil clattering onto the table. Elvis Presley. The name was legendary even to her. But karate? She pictured him in his sequined jumpsuit singing "Hound Dog." The idea of him doing karate felt strange. And the thought of being in a room up close with someone so famous surrounded by other kids, filled her with a familiar knot of anxiety. It sounded like an event, a spectacle. And spectacles always made Lily want to disappear. Yet, as her mother continued to gush about the incredible news, a tiny sliver of curiosity, like a sliver of light under a closed door, began to flicker. In Lily's. It was such an unexpected combination. Could it really be true? A part of her, the part that loved stories and the unexpected, wondered what that would even look like. It was daunting, yes, but also intriguing. A tiny, quiet spark in her usually shadowed world, Elvis, after a long conversation with Miss Clara, felt a sense of purpose he hadn't in months. Miss Clara had painted a vivid picture of the Northwood kids, many from challenging backgrounds, needing something positive, something to believe in. She spoke of their resilience, their yearning for inspiration. It wasn't about publicity, it was about connection. And sharing his passion for karate felt like the right way to connect. He hung up the phone, feeling lighter already. Envisioning the movements, the words he would choose, the lessons he hoped to impart, this wasn't just a demonstration. It was an opportunity to give something truly meaningful. He walked back to the window, but this time the world outside didn't feel empty. It felt full of possibility. A new kind of purpose shining brighter than any stage light. He was ready to be more than just the king of rock and roll. He was ready to be a sensei, if only for a day. The news spread through Northwood like wildfire. Elvis is coming. The whispers turned into shouts, then into excited conversations on street corners, in grocery store aisles, and especially on the playgrounds. Miss Clara, the tireless director of the community center, felt a wave of both elation and panic. Elation because her desperate plea had actually been answered by the unlikeliest of heroes. Panic because she now had to organize an event that would bring the king of rock and roll to their modest center. "We need a stage," she declared to her two bewildered volunteers, looking around the small scuffed gymnasium, and mats, and chairs, and security. Her mind raced 1,000 details demanding attention. She wasn't just planning a summer camp activity, she was hosting a legend. Back at Graceland, Elvis was already deep in preparation. He chose his jui carefully. Not his usual training jui, but a crisp white one, clean and sharp. He spent hours in his private dojos, moving through katas with practiced grace, his movements powerful yet fluid. He wasn't just rehearsing the moves, he was thinking about how to explain them to a group of kids. He wanted to convey the spirit of karate, not just the physical action. "It's about respect," Colonel Elvis explained to his manager, who sat observing from a plush armchair, a cigar clamped between his teeth. "Respect for yourself, for others, for the discipline. It's about finding inner strength, about control, not just fighting," Colonel Parker grunted, blowing a puff of smoke. "Sounds mighty philosophical, Elvis. Just make sure there's enough flashy stuff for the cameras, and maybe a good photo op with the kids." Elvis sighed. He knew the colonel meant well, and publicity was part of his world, but this felt different. "No cameras, Colonel. Not beyond what Miss Clara might arrange for their little newsletter. This is for the kids, not for the headline." He wanted this to be genuine, a pure exchange, untainted by the usual media circus. The colonel surprisingly agreed. "All right, Elvis, your show. Just make sure you look good." As posters went up around Northwood, simple hand-drawn signs announcing special summer event, karate demonstration with Elvis Presley. The reactions of the kids varied wildly. Mikey O'Connell, 10 years old and bursting with boundless energy, nearly bounced off the walls when he saw a poster. "Elvis, wow. Is he gonna fight bad guys like in the movies?" Mikey was a whirlwind of questions and excitement, already imagining himself throwing flying kicks. He'd been getting into a bit of trouble lately. A little too much energy, a little too little direction. His mom hoped this event would channel some of that. David Chen, 11, more thoughtful and observant, looked at the poster with a furrowed brow. "Great. I thought he sang. Is he really good at karate? Like Bruce Lee?" David was a reader, a quiet kid, who processed the world through information. He'd seen pictures of Elvis in his flashy suits. The idea of him in a white G was intriguing, a puzzle to be solved. He immediately went to the library, looking up books on martial arts. And then there was Lily. She saw a poster taped to the window of the community center, peeking out from behind a shelf of dusty books. Her heart did a little flutter, thump. Elvis Presley. It was real. She still felt that familiar unease, the desire to shrink into herself. But then she read Crate Demonstration. Her dragon sketch still lay unfinished at home, its eyes reflecting a quiet sadness. She wondered if karate could teach you how to be strong, not just with your fists but inside. Could it help her quiet the constant whisper of shyness? She doubted it, but the thought lingered. She watched Mikey and his friends, all boisterous and loud, gathered around the poster, making karate chop noises. She saw David already, with a book open, talking to Ms. Clara about belt colors. Lily felt like an outsider as usual. She slipped away, finding a quiet corner in the library, pulling out her own book. But her mind kept returning to the image of Elvis, not singing, but performing martial arts. Ms. Clara, meanwhile, was buzzing with a nervous energy. She'd managed to borrow some old wrestling mats from the high school, and a local carpenter had volunteered to build a small, sturdy platform in the gym. The community had rallied donations of snacks and drinks pouring in. Everyone wanted to help. The arrival of Elvis wasn't just an event. It was a beacon of hope for their struggling little center, a moment of magic for their often overlooked neighborhood. "He's really coming, isn't he?" Ms. Clara whispered to herself, looking out at the nearly empty gym. Soon to be filled with children and a legend, she ran a hand over the rough wood of the new platform. She hoped it would be enough. She hoped Elvis would truly connect with the kids. She hoped above all that it would make a difference. The air in Northwood was thick with anticipation, a mix of disbelief and eager hope, all centered around one name: Elvis. The morning of the demonstration dawned clear and bright, a perfect Memphis summer day. By 9 o'clock, a buzzing crowd of children, accompanied by curious parents and older siblings, had already started to gather outside the Northwood Community Center. Excitement rippled through the lines, a mixture of eager anticipation and bewildered curiosity. Some kids, like Mikey, were bouncing on the balls of their feet, mimicking punching motions. Others, like David, stood quietly, their eyes scanning the entrance, processing the sheer unlikelihood of what was about to happen. Lily stood near the back, clutching a worn teddy bear for comfort, her eyes downcast. She tried to convince her mom to let her stay home, but Sarah had insisted. "This is a once-in-all-lifetime chance. Sweetie, you can't miss it." Lily had just nodded, her stomach doing nervous flips. She wished she could just disappear. The sounds of all those excited kids were overwhelming. A hush fell over the crowd as a sleek, dark car pulled up to the side entrance, discreetly avoiding the main gate. A large man, one of Elvis's usual companions, stepped out, followed by a figure that made every head crane. It wasn't the sequin jumpsuit, the flashy scarves, or the impossibly high pompadour that usually defined Elvis Presley. This Elvis was different. He wore a crisp white G, the traditional uniform of martial arts, tied with a black belt that seemed to gleam even in the morning light. His hair was still iconic, but slightly less styled, and his famous sideburns framed a face that looked serious, focused, and surprisingly calm. He carried a small duffel bag and walked with a quiet purpose, acknowledging the gasps and murmurs with a small, gentle nod. There was no theatrical wave, no rock star swagger, just a man ready to teach. Inside the gym, the air crackled with anticipation. The temporary stage, a simple wooden platform covered with borrowed wrestling mats, was set up in the middle of the floor. Folding chairs were arranged in a semicircle, already mostly filled. Ms. Clara, looking both thrilled and utterly frazzled, directed the last few arrivals to their seats. Elvis walked onto the makeshift stage, accompanied by one of his martial arts instructors, Kang Ree, who would serve as an assistant. He surveyed the faces before him, hundreds of children, from wide-eyed toddlers to skeptical teenagers. He saw Mikey practically vibrating with energy in the front row. He spotted David sitting attentively, eyes already analyzing. And in the back, partially hidden behind a pillar, he caught a glimpse of Lily, her head bowed, her small frame almost shrinking into her seat. He took a deep breath, the familiar scent of the gym, a mix of old wood dust and nervous energy filling his lungs. This wasn't a concert. This was something deeper. He felt a profound sense of responsibility. These were young, impressionable minds, and he had a chance to offer them more than just entertainment. He stepped to the center of the mats, his movements fluid and precise. His assistant stood a respectful distance behind him. The chatter in the gym slowly died down, replaced by a collective intake of breath. Everyone was waiting. Elvis didn't grab a microphone. He didn't say, "Thank you very much." Instead, he performed a simple, traditional bow to the audience. It was a gesture of respect, an acknowledgement of the shared space and the opportunity to teach. Then he turned to his assistant and bowed to him, a mutual sign of respect between martial artists. His voice, when he finally spoke, was calm, deeper than his singing voice, and surprisingly gentle. "Good morning, everyone," he began, a small smile touching his lips. "My name is Elvis, and today I'm not here to sing. I'm here to share something very special to me. The art of karate." A ripple went through the crowd. Some kids looked confused, but most were simply mesmerized by the sheer presence of the man. Lily, despite herself, slowly lifted her head. She saw the clean lines of his gi, the black belt, the way he stood with such quiet strength. He looked different, not like a cartoon rock star, but like a real person, a teacher. Her curiosity, that tiny spark, began to glow a little brighter. The unlikely dojo was open for business. "Karat," Elvis began, his voice carrying easily across the hushed gymnasium, "is more than just punching and kicking. It's about discipline. It's about respect for your instructors, for your fellow students, and, most importantly, to specify." He paced slowly on the mats, his posture straight, his movements economical. "When I first started learning, I was drawn to the physical power of it. Who wouldn't be? But what truly changed my life was realizing it was about mental power, about focus, about controlling your body and your mind." He paused, making eye contact with various children in the audience. When his gaze swept past Lily, she quickly looked down, but not before noticing the warmth in his eyes. "Think about it," Elvis continued. "How many times do we feel like we're not strong enough, not brave enough? Karate teaches you that you have all the strength you need already inside you. You just need to learn how to access it." He then moved into a series of basic stances, demonstrating each with precision. "This is a horse stance," he explained, sinking low, his legs wide. "It builds powerful legs, like the roots of a tree, strong and unmoving." He held the stance steady as a rock for several seconds, demonstrating effortless power. Kids gasped. "And this," he said, shifting smoothly into a front stance, "is about moving forward, with purpose, with courage." His movements were like a dance, each pose flowing into the next, graceful yet imbued with immense power. He wasn't showing off, he was teaching. "I remember," he continued, a faint smile on his lips. "When I was starting out, I was impatient. I wanted to learn everything at once. My instructor, a wise man, told me." He demonstrated a simple block, then a punch, explaining the mechanics, the breathing, the focus required. Every move, no matter how simple, requires your full attention. If your mind is wandering, your body will wander too. He then transitioned into a kata, a prearranged sequence of movements that simulates a fight against imaginary opponents. It was a beautiful display of martial artistry. Elvis moved with a quiet intensity, his hands and feet snapping out with incredible speed, then retracting with controlled power. Each punch, each block, each kick was executed with a sharp exhaled breath. A sound that filled the gym and made the hairs on the back of the kids' necks stand up. Lily, who had started the day with her head down, was now completely captivated. Her eyes followed his every move. The graceful power, the focused energy. It was like watching a living sculpture. She saw not just the strength, but the calm precision, the complete control. It was so different from the wild, unrestrained energy she usually encountered. It was beautiful. Mikey, who had initially been fidgeting, was now frozen in awe, his jaw slightly slack. He'd expected flashy, maybe some jumps. But this was something deeper, something that made him feel a strange sense of quiet reverence. David, ever the analyst, was scrutinizing every detail, trying to understand the physics of each movement, the balance, the leverage. He mentally compared it to the books he'd read, realizing how much more profound it was to see it in person performed by someone who truly embodied the art. As Elvis finished the kata, he ended with a final strong stance, exhaling slowly, then brought his hands together in a respectful bow. The gym was silent for a beat, a collective moment of awe before a smattering of applause broke out, growing quickly into a roar. It wasn't the wild, adoring roar of a concert crowd, but a deeper, more genuine sound, the sound of respect and wonder from a group of kids who had just seen something truly amazing. Elvis smiled a genuine, warm smile. He had them. He wasn't just a king. He was a teacher, and they were ready to learn. After his impressive kata, Elvis stepped forward, his smile warm and inviting. "Now," he said, his voice a little lighter, "who wants to try a few basic moves?" A sea of hands shot up immediately. Mikey was practically jumping out of his seat, shouting, "Me! Me, Elvis! Pick me!" Even David raised his hand, though more cautiously. Elvis chuckled, his eyes twinkling. All right, settle down now. We'll start with just a few of you. No jumping kicks just yet, Mikey," he called out, making Mikey grin. He selected a small group: Mikey, David, a couple of other eager boys, and, surprisingly, Clara gently nudged a very hesitant Lily forward. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. Her face felt hot, and she wanted nothing more than to bolt. But Clara's gentle hand on her back and the knowledge that everyone was looking kept her frozen. "Come on up," Elvis said, his voice kind, holding out a hand. He didn't seem to notice her crippling shyness, or if he did, he didn't show it. Lily, her hands trembling slightly, slowly made her way to the edge of the mats. Elvis patiently demonstrated a basic, ready stance. Feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, hands loosely fisted in front. "This is where all power begins," he explained. "A strong foundation." Mikey immediately copied him, a little too wide, a little too wobbly. Elvis walked over, gently adjusting Mikey's feet. "Good start, Mikey. Just remember, feel grounded, like a tree." He moved to David, who was already analyzing his own posture, trying to match Elvis's. "Precisely. Excellent focus, David," Elvis praised. "You got the mind for it." Then he came to Lily. She stood stiffly, her arms rigid, her feet too close together. She was doing her best, but her nervousness made her movements awkward. "That's a good effort, Lily," Elvis said softly, his voice calming. He knelt down slightly, getting closer to her level. "Relax your shoulders, sweetie. Imagine you're a spring ready to release energy, but right now just calm and coiled." He gently took her hands, showing her how to make a loose fist. Not too tight, not too loose. He placed them in front of her. Then he softly adjusted her feet, widening her stance slightly. "Bend your knees a little more. Feel the strength in your legs. That's it." He didn't rush her. He didn't make her feel silly. He was patient, his touch gentle, his eyes encouraging. Lily, for the first time in a long time, felt a tiny spark of confidence. With Elvis's help, her stance felt a little more stable, a little less awkward. She looked up, meeting his eyes for a brief moment, and saw only kindness. Next, he showed them a basic punch. From the hip, he instructed, demonstrating the rotation, the snap of the wrist. Not just arm strength, but your whole body working together. Mikey, bursting with enthusiasm, threw a wild, flailing punch. "Whoa there, tiger!" Elvis laughed good-naturedly, gently taking Mikey's arm. "Power is good, but control is better. Imagine hitting just a tiny spot precisely, not just swinging." He guided Mikey through a slower, more controlled movement. He knelt down again. "Lily," he said, his voice almost a whisper, just for her. "Don't hold back. You have strength inside you. Let it out. Not to hurt, but to express, to be powerful." He put his hand over hers, guiding her through the motions slowly. "Breathe out as you punch. Ha!" He demonstrated the sharp exhalation. "Feel the power. Try it with me." Together, hand over hand, they executed a slow, deliberate punch. Lily felt a strange surge of energy. A tiny flicker of what he was talking about. It wasn't a perfect punch, but it was hers. And she had done it with Elvis Presley. A genuine smile, small but undeniable, touched her lips. For a brief moment, she forgot about being shy, forgot about being an outsider. She was just Lily, learning karate from the king. The barriers around her quiet world were beginning to crack. After guiding the small group through basic stances and punches, Elvis decided to demonstrate one of the more impressive, yet deeply philosophical aspects of martial arts: breaking a board. The kids who had tried the moves returned to their seats, still buzzing from the close encounter with the king. Mikey was still mimicking punches in the air. Lily, feeling surprisingly light, found her seat, a faint smile on her face. Miss Clara brought out a thick wooden board about an inch thick and placed it securely on 2 concrete blocks at Elvis's instruction. A hush fell over the gymnasium. Even the most boisterous children were silent, their eyes wide. This was something out of a movie. Elvis stood before the board, his expression serious. "Now, this isn't about brute force," he explained, his voice low and steady. "It's about focus, about concentrating all your energy, all your power into one tiny point, at one precise moment." He held up his hand, his knuckles hard, calloused from years of training. "It's about belief. Belief that you can do it if you doubt yourself. You won't break the board. You'll just hurt your hand." He paused, looking out at the children. "How many of you sometimes feel like there's a big, tough board in front of you?" he asked. "Something that seems impossible to do? Maybe a really hard math problem? Or standing up to a bully or trying something new when you're scared?" He glanced at Lily, who for once didn't look away. She nodded almost imperceptibly. That board was her shyness, her fear of trying new things. "This," Elvis continued, gesturing to the wooden plank, "is a symbol of that challenge. But every board, no matter how tough, has a breaking point. And so does every challenge. You just need to find that point, and then hit it with everything you've got. Your mind, your spirit, and then your body." Took a few steps back, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes. For a moment, he was centered, focused. The air in the gym seemed to thicken with anticipation. You could hear a pin drop. Then, with a sharp, explosive ki, a martial arts shout meant to gather and release energy. Elvis snapped his hand forward, a blur of motion. There was a loud cracking sound as his palm connected squarely with the center of the board. Crack! The wooden plank splintered into 2 clean halves, falling to the mat with a clatter. For a moment there was stunned silence, then a collective explosive gasp from the children. "Hoo-ah!" Lily, who had been holding her breath, let it out in a shaky sigh, a smile spreading across her face. It wasn't just the broken wood, it was the sheer force of will, the focused power that had gone into it. It was incredible. Elvis stood there, his hand still extended for a moment. Then he slowly lowered it, showing no sign of pain. Only quiet satisfaction. He picked up the two halves of the board. "See," he said, holding them up for everyone to see. "Not magic, just focus, just belief, just never giving up." He explained how he had trained for years for such a feat, emphasizing that it wasn't something to try at home without proper instruction. But the lesson, he stressed, is for all of you. Whatever your board is, whatever challenge you face, remember to focus, believe in yourself, and hit it with all the strength you have inside. The kids looked at him with newfound respect, not just as a performer, but as a genuine master of something profound. They had seen not just a physical act, but a demonstration of an unbreakable spirit, a lesson in perseverance and self-belief that resonated far beyond the confines of the gymnasium. Elvis had not only broken a board, he had broken through their expectations, showing them something truly powerful and inspiring. The atmosphere in the room shifted from awe to a deep sense of wonder and possibility. The board break had been the emotional turning point. The children, initially curious or skeptical, were now fully invested, hanging on Elvis's every word and movement. The air was electric, charged with a profound sense of awe. Elvis, feeling this shift in the room, decided to end with a flourish. But the fluidity and artistry of karate. "Now I want to show you how all these individual movements can come together," he announced. "How strength and grace can flow like water yet strike like lightning." He called upon his instructor, King Ree, to join him on the mats. "Master Ree will demonstrate with me some advanced techniques. This is what years of practice, discipline, and respect can achieve." What followed was a breathtaking display of controlled sparring. It wasn't a fight. It was a dance, a demonstration of perfectly timed blocks, parries, and counterattacks. Elvis and Master Ree moved around each other with incredible speed and precision, their bodies seemingly anticipating each other's next move. Kicks snapped out inches from a face, punches stopped short of their target, all with absolute control. The whoosh of air from a fast kick, the crisp slap of a block filled the gym. They moved like shadows, their movements economical and powerful. Elvis, despite his fame, showed incredible humility, bowing to Master Ree before each sequence, demonstrating the respect inherent in martial arts. He demonstrated a powerful sidekick, his leg extended perfectly straight, then retracted it instantly. He showed defensive maneuvers, deflecting imaginary attacks, then transitioning into an offensive strike. The children were completely silent, utterly mesmerized. Their eyes followed every rapid movement, every graceful turn. Mikey was leaning so far forward in his seat, he nearly toppled over. David's eyes were wide, absorbing every detail. Even Lily, who usually found loud, fast movements unsettling, was completely transfixed. She saw the beauty in the control, the poetry in the power. It was like watching a living, breathing work of art. There were moments of genuine oohs and ahs from the crowd as Elvis executed a particularly fluid series of moves, or Master Ree responded with an equally impressive counter. It wasn't just impressive, it was inspiring. It showed what the human body and mind were capable of with dedication and purpose. Elvis seemed to pour his heart and soul into every movement, communicating through his actions the passion he held for this ancient art. He wasn't performing. He was sharing a part of himself, a deeper, more disciplined side that few outside his inner circle ever got to see. Finally, with a rapid exchange of blocks and a final sharp ki, Elvis and Master Ree ended their demonstration, standing perfectly still, facing each other. Then, bowing deeply. The silence that followed was profound, a testament to the impact they had made. Then, as Elvis and Master Ree turned to face the audience, the dam broke. A collective, resounding roar erupted from the children. It wasn't just applause. It was a cacophony of shouts, cheers, stomping feet, and spontaneous standing ovations. Amazing. W-O-W. Elvis E. Best. The sound was overwhelming. a tidal wave of genuine, unadulterated excitement and admiration. Mikey was jumping up and down, yelling at the top of his lungs. "That WASSO, cool. I want to learn karate." David, usually so composed, was clapping furiously, a wide, genuine grin plastered across his face. Lily, who always hid, who always wanted to be invisible, was on her feet. She wasn't jumping or shouting, but her hands were clapping hard and fast, and a huge, joyful smile lit up her entire face. Her eyes, usually downcast, sparkled with an almost unbelievable wonder. She was part of the collective sound, part of the symphony of awe that filled the Northwood Community Center. Elvis looked out at the sea of cheering, beaming faces, and a profound sense of warmth spread through him. This was different from the roar of a stadium. This was the pure, unvarnished reaction of children who had been genuinely inspired. This was a moment he would never forget. He bowed deeply, a sincere, heartfelt bow. Acknowledging the incredible, amazing reaction of the kids, he had come to share his passion, and they had given him a gift far greater than any applause. Their genuine, unbridled wonder. The formal demonstration was over. But the energy in the Northwood Community Center was far from dissipating. As Elvis and Master Ree took their final bows, Ms. Clara, beaming from ear to ear, stepped forward. "Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, Master Ree. That was truly incredible." Then she announced, "Elvis has generously agreed to answer a few questions and sign some autographs for everyone." The gym instantly erupted into a fresh wave of excited chatter. Kids swarmed forward, not pushing or shoving, but a whirlwind of eager faces, all clamoring to be heard. Surprisingly, their questions weren't about his movies or his hit songs. They were about karate. "Elvis, how long did it take to get your black belt?" Mikey shouted, practically vibrating with excitement. "Years, Mikey," Elvis replied, his voice still gentle despite the noise. "But every hour was worth it." "Do you ever get scared when you break a board?" David asked, his analytical mind still at work. Elvis smiled. "Everyone feels a little fear, David, but courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing it anyway. It's about trusting your training and your focus." Then a small, quiet voice, barely audible, managed to cut through the din. "Elvis, how do you stop being shy?" Every head turned. It was Lily, standing a little apart from the main group, her hand tentatively raised. Her face was flushed, but her eyes, though still a little nervous, held a newfound bravery. Elvis's gaze softened instantly. He walked over to her, bending down slightly so he could look her directly in the eye. The crowd quieted, sensing the importance of the moment. "Lily, that's a very brave question," he said, his voice warm and understanding. "Everyone feels shy sometimes. Even me, believe it or not." A ripple of surprise went through the crowd. "The king. Shy? Carrot," he continued. "It helps you find your inner strength. It teaches you that you're capable of more than you think. Every time you try something new, even if it feels small, you're building through your own board. Just like we saw today." He paused, his gaze kind. "And asking that question right now, in front of everyone, Lily, that was a very brave thing to do. You just broke your first board today, didn't you?" Lily's cheeks colored even more, but a genuine radiant smile spread across her face. She nodded, her eyes shining. She had asked a question out loud to Elvis Presley, and it felt amazing. After the questions, the autograph session began. Elvis sat at a small table signing posters, notebooks, even a few t-shirts. He didn't just scrawl his name, he took time with each child, offering a word of encouragement, a small piece of advice. For Mikey, he drew a quick simplified karate stance and wrote, "Stay focused, Mikey." For David, he wrote, "Keep learning, David. Knowledge is power." When Lily finally made her way to the front, her heart still doing a little flutter thump, Elvis looked up and smiled. "Lily," he said, as if he remembered her name, which she knew he did. "What can I sign for you?" She handed him her tattered sketchbook. open to the page with her sad-eyed dragon. Elvis looked at the drawing, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This is beautiful, Lily," he said softly. "Very expressive." He picked up a pen. Instead of just signing, he added a small, strong line drawing of a person in a powerful, balanced karate stance, right next to her dragon. Below it he wrote, "Be brave, Lily. Find your strength within. Elvis P." Lily stared at it, her eyes wide. He saw her truly, saw her. He had given her not just an autograph, but a message, a challenge, and a connection. As the last child received an autograph and a handshake, Elvis stood up, looking around the bustling gym. Ms. Clara approached him, her eyes glistening. "Elvis," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I don't know how to thank you. You've given these kids something truly special. More than just a show. You've given them hope. And yourselves." Elvis smiled, a genuine, relaxed smile. Seeing their faces, feeling their spirit, that's the best reward a man could ask for. He left the Northwood Community Center as discreetly as he had arrived, but the echoes of his presence and the impact of his demonstration lingered long after his car pulled away. Children were still buzzing, mimicking moves, talking about focus and inner strength. The atmosphere in Northwood felt lighter, infused with a newfound sense of possibility. The amazing reaction wasn't just in the cheers. It was in the transformation already beginning to take root in their young hearts. Weeks turned into a month, and the summer sun continued to bake Memphis, but the heat outside couldn't diminish the warmth that had been kindled within the Northwood Community Center. The memory of Elvis Presley's karate demonstration wasn't just a fleeting celebrity sighting. It had taken root, sprouting in unexpected ways throughout the neighborhood. Mikey O'Connell, the energetic 10-year-old, was perhaps the most visibly changed. Before Elvis's visit, his boundless energy often landed him in trouble. Now it was channeled. He'd convinced his parents to sign him up for a beginner's karate class at a local dojo, one that Ms. Clara had helped them find. He wasn't doing flying kicks yet, but he was learning discipline. His instructor noted his newfound focus, his willingness to practice the same move repeatedly. At home, his mother noticed he was less prone to impulsive outbursts, more thoughtful before acting. He still had a lot of energy, but it felt directed. He often practiced stances in the living room, shouting a quiet ki to himself, remembering Elvis's powerful exhales. David Chan, with his analytical mind, had fully embraced the philosophical side of martial arts. He checked out every book on karate, judo, and even tai chi from the library. He wasn't interested in the physical class as much as the mental aspect. Practiced meditation, trying to clear his mind and find a focus Elvis had spoken about. He started applying the principles of discipline and perseverance to schoolwork, tackling challenging math problems with a newfound determination. He often quoted Elvis's words, "Knowledge is power," to his friends and Lily. The quiet, shy Lily Harper had experienced the most profound transformation. The inscription in her sketchbook, "Be brave, Lily, find your strength within," became her personal mantra. The small karate drawing Elvis had added to her dragon became a symbol of her blossoming confidence. She still had moments of shyness, but they were fewer and less overwhelming. She started volunteering more often at the community center, helping Ms. Clara organize books, even speaking up in group activities. One afternoon, she surprised herself by offering to lead a small drawing workshop for younger kids, something she never would have dreamed of doing before. Ms. Clara, witnessing these changes, felt an immense sense of pride and gratitude. The center, which had been struggling to attract kids, was now buzzing with renewed energy. The Elvis effect had been real and lasting. Inspired, she'd even started a small, informal dojo club at the center, using some basic exercises and philosophies that Elvis had briefly outlined in an impromptu chat with her. It wasn't a formal karate class, but it was a place where kids could practice self-discipline, respect, and mindfulness. She even managed to get some donated mats. Elvis, back amidst the whirlwind of his career, never forgot the Northwood Community Center. Letters started arriving at Graceland, colorful drawings from young children, heartfelt thank you notes from parents, and updates from Ms. Clara. They weren't fan mail. They were personal, genuine expressions of gratitude. They spoke of children who were more confident, more disciplined, more hopeful. He kept Lily's drawing, the one with her sad-eyed dragon, and his small karate figure tacked to a corkboard in his private dojo. When he felt the pressures of fame weighing on him, he would look at it, remembering the quiet courage of that young girl and the pure, unadulterated awe in the eyes of all those children. It was a different kind of applause, a different kind of fulfillment. This impact, this quiet ripple he had created in their lives, resonated deeper than any chart-topping hit. It reminded him that his influence could extend beyond entertainment, touching lives in a truly meaningful way. The seeds of discipline and self-belief had been sown, and they were already beginning to flourish. Months passed, and the Northwood Community Center continued to thrive. The informal dojo club, Ms. Clara had started, born from the inspiration of Elvis's visit, had become one of its most popular programs. Kids, once aimless, found purpose in learning simple stances, practicing controlled movements, and most importantly, understanding the philosophy of respect and self-discipline that Elvis had so passionately shared. Mikey, now stronger and more focused, was on his way to earning his first colored belt in his formal karate class. He still had his wild energy, but it was tempered with a sense of control. He even volunteered at the dojo club at the community center, patiently showing younger kids how to hold a proper stance, embodying the very respect Elvis had preached. David, inspired by Elvis's words about knowledge, had become a walking encyclopedia of martial arts, history, and philosophy. He was writing a short story about a hero who used his mind as much as his fists, taught himself basic meditation techniques, and surprised his teachers with his calm focus in challenging situations. And Lily? The transformation in Lily was perhaps the most beautiful to witness. Her shyness hadn't vanished entirely, but it no longer defined her. She spoke up in class, offered to read aloud, and even initiated conversations with new kids at the center. The small drawing of the karate figure next to her dragon in her sketchbook served as a constant reminder of the strength she now knew resided within her. She started drawing more, not just fantastical creatures, but powerful, dynamic figures expressing a newfound inner strength that had blossomed since that day. She even convinced her mom to let her join a local art club where she shared her work with confidence. Back at Graceland, Elvis, though immersed in a new album and preparing for a film, often thought of the Northwood kids. Their letters still arrived, a cherished collection of drawings and simple, heartfelt updates that reminded him of the true power of connection. He sent Ms. Clara a generous donation to help fund the dojo club, along with a note that read, "Keep up the great work, Ms. Clara. Those kids are the real champions." One quiet afternoon, Elvis sat in his dojo practicing a complex kata. His movements were precise, powerful, and deeply meditative. He remembered the feeling of being on that small makeshift stage in Northwood, the raw honesty of the children's faces, the purity of their reaction. It was a different kind of fame, a different kind of roar. It wasn't about the adoration of millions, but the quiet, profound impact on a few vulnerable young lives. He picked up Lily's sketchbook, the one with his small karate drawing next to her. Dragon, he traced the lines of the brave little figure. It struck him then that while he was the king to the world, to these children, he had been something more. He had been a mentor, a source of inspiration, a tangible example of strength and discipline. He had shown them that even a world-famous rock star could find meaning and purpose in something as quiet and focused as martial arts. The amazing reaction of the kids wasn't just a moment of applause. It was a ripple effect that had changed their lives, setting them on a path of self-discovery and empowerment. For Elvis, it had been a profound reminder that the most rewarding performances were not always on the grandest stages. but in the quiet, genuine connections made in the seeds of hope planted, and in the dreams sparked within the hearts of children. His legacy, he realized, wasn't just in his music, but in the lives he touched, in the spirit he shared, and in the enduring lessons of an unbreakable spirit. And that, he knew, was a legacy worth more than all the gold records in the world.